Thanks, Adam, and thanks everyone for being here today. Excited to be here with Curt and really be making the first press conference and discussions really around 2024 and the Revolution season to come. So we're very excited about that. As I think many of you know, we have been busy already in the later part of this year making moves and trying to put the team in great position for 2024, and we continue that today with Curt. Obviously, the next step there is to bring in a head coach, and I know Curt's already been working on that process and excited for that, and hope to be speaking with you guys in the sometime near future about coaching decision and that next step for the club. So I'm sure Curt will get into that as well, but welcome and thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Brian. First of all, I want to thank my very supportive and loving family and loved ones. I want to thank Brian, our president, Jonathan and Robert Kraft, for their support and entrusting me in this big job to lead the soccer side of the New England Revolution. I think it's a really exciting time for soccer in our country. It's an exciting time for soccer in Boston and here in New England, and I'm extremely excited to put my print now on this organization from the top down. I've been here for a long time. I've helped build some really great parts of our organization, and now with my style, we're going to build it from the top down, and I'm looking forward to the challenges ahead.
Okay, we're going to get to your questions. We have Dan with a microphone, so please wait for him to get around to you. We'll start with Frank DeLappa of the Boston Globe, and then we'll go to Rich Thompson with the Boston Herald.
Great. Curt, as for you, from your experience in this role, what do you consider this team's priorities, strengths, and weaknesses, and is there a timetable for naming a head coach?
Well, first of all, we're very confident in the roster that we have. We've made some roster moves just recently. We have currently 27 players on our roster. We have a very strong roster, so we feel very, very good about it. Obviously, we're always going to be looking to enhance every part of the organization, every single position. So with that, we need to hire a coach. So the timetable to hire a coach, the search started yesterday, and we want to make sure we have a coach in place prior to the start of preseason. So January is the timeline to have a coach in place.
On that thought, Curt, just what are the qualities you're looking for in your coach?
Strong character, strong leadership, a very good tactical understanding. The game is always changing and evolving, so a very strong tactical understanding on the offensive part of the field as well as the defensive part. The ability to manage big personalities and big players. We're a big club. And one that has a track record. So those are some of the qualities we'll be looking for in our head coach.
And next, we'll go to Seth McCumber with the Blazing Musket.
Curt, congratulations. In your opening statement, you mentioned that you've done a lot of big things for this club.
Yeah.
For a lot of outsiders, it's hard to know exactly who makes what deals. Is there a certain thing that you're really proud of, a player bringing in that you want to kind of highlight? And then the other thing about your opening statement, you said you'd want to put your mark on things. How would you do things differently compared to the last few years?
Well, in my responsibility as a technical director, I oversaw our pro pathway. When I got here 4.5 years ago, our pro pathway was one of the weaker ones in MLS, and now it's one of the best, if not the best, in Major League Soccer. And that's something that was my baby, something that I was hands-on with. I have a lot of roles within the club. Our scouting department has been my responsibility since I got here. We've signed some incredible players. We'll continue to do that. We have the entire scouting staff still in place. We have the same staff in place in our pro pathway. So those are two major areas in our organization where it's been my responsibility, and I'm very proud of what we've achieved there. And when you're the head of an organization, you're now in charge of all aspects. So I'll look to enhance every single department. The way I manage is through empowerment. I believe in people. We have Chris Tierney that's actually sitting here. He's instrumental in what we do on the scouting side, and he'll continue to have a bigger role within our organization. We want, the way I work is through empowerment. I believe in people. I know how to lead. I've been doing this a long time. And I'm excited to see this incredible organization that we have and the people that we have in this organization to thrive, and to do some great things where we can have some great memories down the line.
Our next question will go to Hayden Bird of Boston.com, and then we'll go to Sam Minton.
So the club announced some year-end moves earlier this morning, and among those is that you did not pick up the option for Emmanuel Boateng. I wanted to just ask about two players, Emmanuel Boateng and Gustavo Bo, both. I know Bo is out of contract.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that either of those players could return to the club next season?
Yeah, there's, in life, everything's possible, right? So you always have to keep things open. In the case of Ema, there's a, he's an exciting player. I had him when I was in LA, so we love Ema. We love the contributions he's brought to the club, and we keep open dialogue with Ema and his agent at this particular time, and there is an opportunity for him potentially to return to our club. We'll see how the roster unfolds. It's an evolving, always moving process, so we always stay open to that. And in regards to Gustavo, so it's very clear. So Gustavo was a person, was a player that I was instrumental in bringing here to the club, and I have a strong, very close relationship with Gustavo and love Gustavo. But the minute we picked up the option and bought Thomas Chancalay, that meant we had 3 DPs. And at that point, it just looked, it makes it much more difficult to sign a player like Gustavo Bo and his quality. But I stay open-minded that there still could be a possibility as well. But that's our stance in that situation.
Our next question will go to Sam Minton with the Blazing Musket, and then Connor Pignatello with Mass Live.
Congrats, Curt. Just want to ask
Thank you.
Thomas Vasilic, he will be coming back. Didn't appear at all last season. So just overall, kind of what went wrong there, and then what does his role look like for the upcoming season?
With all of our players, to speculate on exactly what the role is going to be moving forward is going to depend on performance, injuries, and everything else. But Thomas is a player that's on our roster, and will be back next year.
We'll go to Connor with Mass Live.
Hi, Curt. So given your experience with Revs 2 and the Revs Academy, how do you see, youth and young players figuring into your philosophy as sporting director?
So, I think often, because you hear me talk a lot about it, and that's what I post a lot about, because that's a big part of my responsibility. It's an important part of our club, but it's just one part of it. So our goal is to be robust in every aspect of our team. So we want to have a robust roster that's excellent 1 through 30. And so often our pro pathway players make up our supplemental roster. So we want to make sure that we are investing in our pro pathway so that we can have the best possible supplemental roster in MLS. And that takes time. So you have a pro pathway in which you go ahead and implement those things. But then you have the times where they're with the first team, they're not with the first team, and we call it a little bit of the cradle. And that's it's a continued development program that we've implemented, and that will continually help. So that's just one small aspect. We have to do it right at the DP end. We have to do it right on every player that we're adding to our roster. So it's an important part, but just one part of what we're doing.
Okay, next we're going to go to Rich Thompson with the Boston Herald, then back to Seth, and then Caroline.
Curt, where are Dylan and Brandon in their rehabilitation process?
They're doing great, which is really encouraging. But the way we look at both of those players is they're going to be kind of mid-season signings for 2024. If we can get them earlier, that's great. In the case of Dylan, he's likely to be back earlier than that. But in the case of Brandon, probably a little bit longer. So they're progressing well, but they still have a ways to go.
Next, we'll go back to Seth and then Caroline Otway.
Just looking to get an update on some of the people that were part of the staff last year. Kevin Hitchcock, Tab Ramos, Clint Piet, and Richie Williams. Is Richie Williams going to come back to the club?
So right now, my focus is on hiring a head coach. And that's where my focus is in. And once we do that, we'll start rounding out exactly where the rest of our staff ends up.
We'll go back to Caroline Otway of RevolutionSoccer.net and then to Hayden Bird with Boston.com.
Thanks, Kurt. Just regarding the roster moves, can you talk about some of the players that will be staying and speaking to the squad looking ahead? What have the squad actually said about what they hope for next year in terms of a head coach, what they expect from this club?
You know, our players are, you know, we had end of season meetings with all of our players. You know, it was a challenging year, as we all know. But everybody is extremely optimistic about the future. And all the qualities that I talked about and what we're looking at head coach, that's what the players want. So we'll hire the right coach, and we'll be on the right track.
Hayden?
Just switching gears, I guess a little bit of question for, well, I guess both of you, but obviously the news in Everett regarding the stadium proposal hitting a political setback. Do you still view that as a feasible place to build a soccer-specific stadium, whether this year or next year, in terms of getting that in the budget?
Yeah, I think, look, those of folks in this room and people who are around MLS understand how powerful and amazing these buildings are around the league, and what great drivers for economic development they could be, what great drivers for the sport of soccer, and what great assets to the overall community, both in this case the greater Boston community, but what could be specifically in a city like Everett, an environmental justice community that can have, you know, a dilapidated decommissioned power plant replaced by, you know, public access park, waterfront, and beautiful public use facilities. So, yeah, we absolutely think it could be a great project. You know, we were asked to come in and evaluate the site and see if it's something that could work. We know it could work there sort of physically, right? There's a dimensional issue to a stadium, the shape and size and all that, and we know it can fit there. And we think it would be a great asset for the community to have it there. So, yeah, we still think that's a viable site and a viable project, and think it could be really great for the overall community.
Hayden, did you have a follow-up?
And just, Curt, I guess how central is a soccer-specific stadium potentially to, as you said, putting your imprint on the club?
For me right now, you know, that's something that's out of my control. We currently have a great, you know, an excellent stadium that we play in right now in Gillette, and we have one of the best home records in Major League Soccer. So we're just going to focus on continuing that. You know, we had if not the best record at home, one of the best this season, and we want to continue with that.
Sam?
And this is kind of a question for both of you. Obviously, 2023 was a difficult year for the club and also for the fans. So I guess what would be your message to the fans about why they should be confident in your leadership as sporting director and also as club president?
Yeah, look, I think the club and where we are now, from my perspective, you know, has a lot to look forward to, and the fans in general have been great and very supportive of the club. You know, we're coming off one of our actually our best year ever in terms of attendance, and I can say just where we are now, we're going to be way ahead of that next year. So, you know, we're looking at probably near 28,000 average attendance for next year, just based on season membership sales and where we see happening right now. So, you know, our fans have been tremendously supportive of this club, and it is very much appreciated by everyone at the club, by myself. And I think they see, you know, going back, call it 5 or so years, the direction we've taken as a club. You know, it really started with bringing, you know, more players in here, guys like Carlos Heel. You know, then the training center came online, and we had that project to really invest in the squad and be able to be one of those clubs that was attractive for players and personnel, frankly, to come here and be part of this club. And I think collectively, all of us, everyone who's been with the club this last 5 years, has done a tremendous job at building that reputation within the league, with players and really around the world. And if you think about the types of players we've been able to attract, and also the clubs that are looking at our club and buying players from our club, I think we've turned this club into a great destination for players, for technical staff, and I think none of that has changed. And what we see in terms of players coming back to the club, guys like Henry Kessler re-signing with the club, the move with Thomas Chankalai, like there's more good players staying and more good players coming to this club, and I don't see any reason why that would slow down. We have a great staff, not just Curt, but he called out guys like Chris Tierney, Remy Roy, who have been with this club and been a big part of building this club, and they remain with the club. So from my perspective, I think fans can really take faith in what we've built here, that's going to continue to be built here. And look, we hope to have as many mechanisms available to us as possible to continue to build this roster. I know there's some stuff out there right now about MLS and what they're considering doing, and I know from our club, we're hopeful to have as much flexibility as possible to build this roster out, because again, we've done a lot of things on the transactional side of this club, and I think we've shown over the last few years, every sort of transaction we've done another transaction to bring a player in, and Tomas is the latest example of buying another designated player for this club. So for us, we're going to continue to invest in the club and continue to bring quality people in this club, both on and off the field. And again, in that marketplace and with those folks, the reputation is stellar. And I just mentioned, the fan support and the attendance. I think Gillette Stadium is a really great place right now to come watch games. Doesn't mean we're not interested in building our own Stadium United project, but we've really focused on building a home field advantage and making a great environment. And I think fans that are coming to the games the last few years are continuing to do that, tell friends about it, and why we've been able to grow as fast, if not faster, than anyone in this league in terms of fan attendance. So, and that to me is really about how much you're impacting the community, what a great experience people are having here, and I see that only moving forward, not backwards.
The only thing I'd add to that is that the difference between winning and losing is slight. It's making a play or not making a play. It's not getting a red card or getting a red card. So if you look at that, and it's what we always talk about in professional sports is that when things are going well, you can't get too high, and when things are on the downside, you can't get too low. So it's just about being even keeled, and know that the difference between winning and losing is slight, and we'll get it right.
We'll go, we'll go to Seth, then Hayden, and then back to Connor over here.
Late in the season last year, you guys were second in the league, and obviously there was some turmoil that happened. As you look back now and reflect on this, what went wrong last year? And you're returning a lot of the same players, and obviously trades and transactions and stuff like that can happen. But where does the confidence come that this year will be different from last year?
Again, I just echo what I just said. The difference between winning and losing is slight. So it comes down to details. It was a lot of disruption, and we need to start preseason properly, get off to a good start. We want to strive for excellence every day, and we need to get a little bit better every day. And it's, you can stand up in here and say, we're just going to go and win championships. Winning championships are hard. So how do you position yourself as an organization to do that? And it comes down to all the details. So, important part will be attracting the right coach for us, and making sure that we start in preseason the right way and continue to work forward well, get a good start, and then position ourselves towards the end of the season so we can be a contender.
Go to Hayden Burton, then back to Connor.
The roster last season, started out very well. We're in second place. But then there was, like an injury to Brandon Bye. It seemed like exposed that there was a lack of depth at right back. I know, those things happen, and that's hard to overcome. In some cases, just bad luck. I guess when you look at the roster last season, was there enough depth? Were there additional moves that you were trying to make that maybe just didn't work out?
You bring up a really great point with Brandon. I mean, it really hurt us. And I think in a lot of ways, maybe people didn't think it would hurt us that much. But sometimes when you lose something, you see how valuable it is. The problem is we just had a lot of injuries. So there was cover in our back line, but because of the amount of injuries, because Henry was also injured, and at times so was Farrell in that particular time, it forced us to have to move things around. Matt Polster ended up playing in that spot. So the important thing is when you build a roster is to make sure you have enormous depth. Sometimes with injury, that causes issues. So moving forward, we'll make sure that, to the best of our ability, that we have great depth in every position to the best as you can. It's a salary cap, league. You can't have starters in every position, 1 through 30. That's just impossible to do. But the goal is to be as robust as you can be. And the way to do that is to have a strong strategy and make sure you're utilizing all the rules of the league to try to be a team that is robust and as balanced as possible.
Connor, and then back to Rich Thompson.
Brian, so obviously, you guys have familiarity with each other, but what were some specific things that Curt did during his term as interim sporting director that convinced you to make him full-time?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Curt, I would go back to 2019 and all of his time with club, not just the interim sporting director time. When you think about sporting director in the position, what you need to be able to accomplish in there, starting sort of at the youngest, it's sort of your pro pathway. And I think he's done an excellent job with the pro pathway that we've built here with Curt. And then you look at player transactions and bringing players to the club. And again, I think it was Seth who asked a question about, different transactions. But I know where Curt has played a role and what players he's helped bring to this club or what transactions he was involved with. And I think we've done a really good job, particularly in some of those spaces with international scouting and players. And that's a really big component. Can you get those players right? And so when I look back at some of those players, such as Gustavo Bo, Adam Buksa, Georgi Petrovic, Tomas Jankalai, I think we've had a really good track record on sort of the high end. And, we expect to be a club that's going to be competing for cups. To do that, you need to have DPs. You need to have good DPs. You need to get those decisions right. I think by and large we've done that over the last few years, and that's a critical component because again, looking forward, that's a place where we expect to be playing in that marketplace. And then as this league evolves, I think the outbound transaction side is really important as well, and you have to do what you can to both time those transactions well and plan for them, but also get maximum value out of that so you have more to invest back in the club and bring in more guys. So, again, guys like Barrero and the U22 initiative, when you're looking into those transactions, that's going to be really important. So, I look back and that involvement, I think we've done really, really well in that space. And that gives us a lot of confidence in Curt and his ability moving forward in those areas. And then, specifically during the interim time, again, I think the transactional side, we had a lot to deal with. The Petrovic transfer kind of came in there, and while I think we've said we tried not to sell Georgie, and we had to do a lot of work on that front. I think some of that got public. Ultimately, we wound up in a situation where we felt like we had to sell him. But even navigating that situation, which is very difficult, I don't know many people that have had to deal with a potential eight-figure transfer that they're denying, and managing through that situation, which is not easy, which we were able to do. And then obviously had to get to the point where we did sell. But doing things like re-signing Henry Kessler, again, the move we made to Chanclay and getting that done, and I know that's a bit of a straightforward move to do that, but making sure we're setting the team up well. And then there's been some other transactional stuff we've worked through. So, I think I have a lot of confidence in Curt based on not just the last, I'll call it 6 months, but really it's 4 years and the work he's done for the club.
Rich?
You kind of touched on what I was going to ask, but is there a frontline goalkeeper out there you're in the hunt for right now, or are you just going to sit with Earl and Jacob right now?
We currently have 3 goalkeepers on our roster. Our stance is we're always looking to enhance our team, so we'll look at each position, and if it makes sense for us to make a move that enhances us and we can do it within our salary cap and the rules of the league, we'll go ahead and do it.
So we have a few more questions here, so we'll go to Seth, Sam, and then Hayden.
Brian, you seem to hint at the idea that there's a rumor out there that there might be a 4th designated player that MLS adds. Would you be in favor of something like that? And just for Curt, real quick, has there been conversations about Carlos Heel re-signing, and what's the status with Giacomo Veroni, because all your spots are filled right now?
So I wasn't specifically speaking on that one rumor. I think there's a number of different roster sort of related things that are out there. I think I'm just saying in general, we're a club that has filled our 3 DP slots. We filled, the way it's structured today, we're only allowed 1 U22 spot, and we filled that spot. And like I said, we've had a lot of outbound business for this club, and we're looking to do as much inbound business as we can. So anything that changes, that gives more flexibilities for teams like ours, I think we're in favor of. So again, we're a club that I think if you look back, has been one of the higher spending clubs in the league over the last few years. We don't anticipate changing that philosophy in any way. So again, with 3 DB slots and 1 U22 slot filled, again, with players that we like, but, we're looking for opportunities to bring in as many good players as we can to the club. So, we would welcome any ways that we can do that.
we picked up the option on Carlos Hill in regard to Vrioni. Giacomo is part of our team. He scored 9 goals last year at limited time. So he's extremely motivated to come back and have a strong season. And, you know, it will be up to the new head coach and Giacomo to make sure that they forge a really good relationship. But he's a player we believe in. And he scored 9 goals on limited time. So if he had played more time, could have those been more? So he's a good kid, works hard, and, you know, like I said, we're optimistic about next year.
Then to Hayden.
I apologize for another staffing question, but obviously Clint served as interim. Is he a candidate for this head coaching position? And if not, you know, will he revert back to Revs 2? Just what's his status?
You know, Clint has done an incredible job in our organization as the second team coach, and he stepped up at a really crucial time for us and a difficult time for us. I don't want to comment on the head coach search at all. We're in competition with other clubs, so I'm not going to comment on that. The one thing I will say about our coaching search is that we're a highly desirable job, and we've been inundated with coaching candidates, and we're very confident we'll find the right person.
Okay. Back to Hayden Bird.
Something that I think is an interesting dynamic with this club, unlike some of maybe the other local teams in the area, is that you have to deal with teams around the world who are potentially also interested in your players. And I mean, we saw that with George Petrovic. So I guess, you know, that has been a good model for the club in a way in terms of developing talent and having young, talented players on the team, but then maybe they potentially leave. I guess, how do you balance, for fans out there who are just curious about that dynamic, how do you balance that with also just trying to win now?
I'll give a little bit, and then
Yeah.
I'll let Curt say more. But I think what's really important to understand in soccer is that young, talented players have options of where they want to go. And many times they're looking for a destination that can enhance their value, enhance their abilities, and help them, you know, move to another league or another role. And I think, you know, if you're not a club that's proving that you can do that and make that happen, there's an entire market of really desirable players that you won't have access to. And so while it's great in theory to get great players in here and keep them forever, you know, if you look at the global market for soccer, that's just not the way the soccer world works. And so I think for our league, you just have to figure out where you are, right? And if you look at the top of the soccer food chain, it's not like there's leagues that are top of the food chain. There's like 6 clubs, maybe 3 clubs in the entire world that are really at the top of that food chain. And so, you know, when you're sitting in that ecosystem, I think if you're showing young, talented players that you're a place that you can come to and leave to a club like Chelsea, you know, you get access to players that no other teams maybe in this league will have access to. So I do think it's important. Now, Curt's job, the difficult job is to balance it out with always having a top MLS team on the table, right? So how do you do that in a way? I'll bounce that over to Curt. But I do think it's important to understand that it's not just simple, you go out there and you spend the most money, you get the best players. The players that you really want are the ones that have a choice. And you want to make your club desirable. And I think we've done a really great job over the years of making our club a desirable choice for young, really talented players from around the globe to look at and think of a place that they can come to and have success and continue their career. And I do think that is important. I think if you don't have that, you're limited in the types of players you get. And how you fill that roster out, again, I'll bounce to Curt, but I think you want to have that option to be able to attract those types of players.
Again, I go back to the word robust. The more robust your roster is and how much depth you have enables you to be able to sell players and then have the next player be ready. So it takes a lot of planning. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a difficult challenge, especially with the transfer markets being, you know, in terms of the timing being different. Hopefully the league can line those up so we don't have a situation like we did with Georgie where you lose them and you know you can only go out and get free agents. That makes it much more difficult. But again, it's if you have a robust roster and you're planning and you're always looking ahead, and that's our job moving forward. You position yourself better for those. But anytime you lose a player, you have to replace them, and that's you know, you're not always going to hit those 100%.
I guess we could take 1 or 2 final questions. We'll go to Seth.
I know there's certain things that you can't say, but could each of you just make a statement about Bruce Arena and what happened last year and maybe what he's meant to you as well?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what happened last year, I think that's been covered a lot, Seth, so I respect the question, but, I think we've covered that, and, Bruce made his statement, and I think we're going to leave it at that for that.
We're not looking back, we're looking forward. All right, we're looking forward to 2024 and starting off the right way. Looking back is a waste of time at this point. It's time to move forward and focus on 2024.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much. That's going to conclude for our Q&A today. Before we leave, we're going to do a quick photo op here with Brian and Curt. So if you don't mind staying seated in the front, and we'll do a quick photo. And then thank you all for joining us.